Hey guys, what's up? Thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome back to the channel. This is Philosophy. Today's video is another net worth update, this time for May 2022. As usual, we're going to go through the numbers that I had at the end of April, and then we're going to review my numbers in May, see what the differences are, and then later in the video, stick around because I will be going into some of my life updates. So thank you so much for joining me for today's video. Let's get into the numbers. So to recap from April 2022, my net worth was $137,720. The first item we're going to go through is the equity that I currently have in the two properties that I own. And at the end of May 2022, this currently sits at $83,487. This is an increase from the previous month of about $648. My mortgage payments stay the same, so the increase in my equity every month is pretty much always this amount. The second item on this list is my DCPP. This is currently invested in the TDE series, split 50-50 in between TDB 902 and TDB 900. So the current balance of that account is $3,360. This is a decrease month over month of about $100. Next up is my RRSP. Again, this is also split between two of the TDE series index funds, the Canadian and the US one. So the current value at the end of May is $45,820. This is a decrease month over month of about $6,000. The majority of the decrease in this account came from the $5,000 that I took out of my RRSPs to help float me in between not working and my new job. The rest came from the dip in the market. Feel free to stick around later in the video when I discuss why I took money out of my RRSPs and how that process went. The next item on this list is my TFSA. I currently have one single stock in this account, and it is valued at $946. This is a decrease from the previous month of $300. So the stock is just kind of going up and down. Right now it's a little bit down, and I'm hoping in the next year or two that it climbs back up. If you haven't seen my other videos, I have about $4,700 invested into this, and it is worth a lot less than that at the moment. Next up, we have my vehicle. Still, I value this at $5,000, although I do believe that I could get a little bit more if I sold it in the next few months, which is something I am still actively considering, and we'll see how that goes depending on how the work situation turns out. Stick around for later to hear more about that. My line of credit is currently maxed out, and it is at a balance of just over $9,200. This is a decrease from the previous month of about $2,546. So I do deduct this amount from my overall net worth because it is money that I owe, and I will be paying this off as soon as possible. I also have $5,000 in cash. That is the money that I took out of my RRSP, and we'll get into that later in the video as to what my plans are for that money. That brings our total net worth for May 2022 to $134,413. This is a decrease from April 2022 of just over $3,300. A big chunk of this is coming from the market doing its little dip right now, and a portion of this as well is just my regular expenses. I have just started to get paid from my new job, so this will hopefully change down the road, and I won't be digging so much into my net worth. So let's jump into some life updates where I'm going to get into things that are changing for me. We'll talk about the RRSP amount that I took out and my new job, etc. So let's chat about the money that I took out of my RRSPs. I ended up changing my allocation in my RRSP last month. I think it was at the end of last month. I previously had a three-way split in between an international index fund, a US one, and a Canadian one. I decided to change my allocation and sell all of the index funds in the international market and use that money to, one, I took out $5,000, and then the rest, which was about $11,000, I decided to split in between the Canadian and US so that I had a 50-50 split And I just wanted to get out of the international market with everything that's going on in the world right now. I was a little bit more comfortable having a Canadian-US split. So that is what I'm going to stick with going forward until maybe something changes. But at the moment, I do feel more confident just having that split. That is the kind of risk level I'm willing to take on. If they don't do well, that's on me. But I did just want to switch it up and try something different. So that is how my current portfolio is split. The $5,000 that I ended up taking out of my RRSP, I just called into TD, which is the bank that I bank with, and I spoke with them over the phone, and it was about a 5-minute process. They just moved the money directly out of my RRSP because it wasn't cash, put it into my checking account, and it was done, no problem. There was a 10% withholding tax, which is something I wanted to talk about. You can take money out of your RRSPs at any point in time. If you're struggling or need a bit of cash, this can be a good alternative to taking on debt or borrowing money from a family member or selling certain things. If you need to dip into that, you just have to be aware of what your withholding tax is going to be. Up to $5,000, it's 10%. I believe $5,000 to $10,000 is 20%. And then it goes up and up as you go and take more money out. Another thing to note when taking money out of your RRSP is that contribution room, so I took out $5,000, that room of $5,000, I will never get back. So that is a deterrent to taking money out of your RRSPs, but at the same time, I am nowhere near maxing out that account. I still have about $80,000 in space to put money in from previous years where I didn't max it. So I felt like $5,000 in the long term, in the long run, wasn't going to make a huge difference. If you've been following me for a while, I did take out a $10,000 line of credit, which is one of my line items in my net worth videos. That is maxed out. So that is why I decided to take money out of my RRSPs, because I had already maxed that $10,000 loan over the last 5 months when I was not working. So moving on to a few other items on this list. The next thing I want to talk about is my vehicle and my second property. So I've been considering selling my vehicle for the last few months. There are some issues with parking where I live, and I also don't use my vehicle very often. The job that I currently have, I can walk to and from work. However, I've been going back and forth on this because where I live in Calgary, it is winter for the majority of the year. It gets very, very cold in the winter. Living in a city like Calgary, it is almost a necessity to have a vehicle if you don't live right downtown where everything is walkable. We do currently live downtown. However, I do find myself relying on my vehicle quite often. And because it's completely paid off and I don't drive it a whole lot, it doesn't cost me more than about $100, $120 per month. So I don't think that me using transit would be really any less money than me keeping the vehicle that I currently have. This one is currently up for debate, so we're gonna see how the next few months play out, and I'm going to be tracking how much I'm actually using that car to see if it's worth it for me to keep it. I've also been considering selling my second property. This is the property that I purchased last summer for my mom to move to the city and to live in it and help cover costs. My mom has been here for just about a year, still hasn't found any work, and is at the point now where she will not be able to help me cover those expenses of that property. And because I'm not making a whole lot of money, which we'll get into, it's becoming a liability. Another thing to mention is the market in the area that I purchased this condo in is actually going up a bit. So I do believe that I could sell the property for more than I bought it for, potentially break even or even make a little bit of money after all the realtor fees and breaking my mortgage, which will cost a fee as well. So let's get into work. I recently started a new job at a local craft brewery here in Calgary. I've been there for about 3 weeks now, and it pays $18 an hour, and I'm currently getting about 30 hours a week. So I'm not making a ton of money, especially compared to what I've been making in the last few years. It is becoming a little bit difficult to sustain the type of lifestyle that I was used to while making this amount of money. and then also being worried about the second property and all these other expenses that are coming up. My monthly expenses are about $1,800 to $2,000 a month. So when I work part-time at the brewery, the money that I take home in that month just about covers what my expenses are. This of course means that I have no wiggle room. I don't have any money that I can put towards saving for fire, and it is shifting my perspective in work again. Like, this happens all the time to me. The job is actually quite enjoyable. It's very physical. So I feel like I'm also getting a workout, and it's really good for my body and my health doing a job that's like this. However, at the same time, I'm really not making enough money to achieve the fire goals that I had set for myself. And that does have me a little bit concerned. YouTube is one thing that I want to focus on more to get to a point where I might be making some income from YouTube. I think that would be a really good balance in the future, to be able to do YouTube and work at a brewery. I think I'd have a really good balance of making a good amount of money, being able to save for retirement, while also enjoying my job and having a little bit more control over my time. I'm really interested now in working for myself. I think that not working for a few months and then going back to a job where I'm working for someone else has made me feel like I might actually enjoy being my own boss a lot more than I had originally thought. So that is something I'm kind of playing with. And in that same vein, my previous video, I mentioned a job that I had interviewed for that was a 6-figure job in the field that I was previously in. That sounded like it was really cushy, golden handcuffs kind of scenario where you're making a lot of money, not really doing like a ton of really hard, difficult work. And I'm still waiting to hear back from this place, and I'm hoping to hear in the next 1 to 2 weeks on what their decision is. This would be a massive boost in my fire journey. I would be able to save a lot of money and potentially retire in the next 10 to 15 years. So this is something that I'm definitely going to jump on if I get offered it. So fingers crossed that that comes through. The weather is finally starting to get better out, and I'm very excited for the summer. It's definitely a season where I like to spend money, and that has me a little bit worried just because my job doesn't necessarily allow me to go out and spend money the way that I normally would. So we're gonna see how that goes, but thank you guys so much for joining me for today's video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.